Does Tomlin passing Cowher on the all-time wins list make him a better coach? Black and white, just more wins, therefore he is better or was better at his job than Cowher. Your take?
No.
Why is it paining you? You are saying it through.
I don't think it necessarily means he's worse, but I don't think just winning 150 games
are you gnashing your teeth, or are you gritting your teeth? What are you doing here? Is it a gnashing?
It's an exasperated sigh. I do think there's a small bit of legitimacy to the whole. You've had the franchise quarterback for the entirety of your tenure. The other guy didn't. And yet, the other guy also coached a good chunk of his career at a time when, even though the teams with the best quarterbacks tended to win the most games, it was easier to win games without having an elite quarterback because the league was more favorable to defense, because it was more run game oriented, because schemes weren't as offensively complex. Like in Bill Cowher's 90s football, you might lose to a John Elway or a Troy Aikman, but you could win a lot of games with a Neil O'Donnell or a Cordell Stewart.
Okay. I think that the league has definitely revamped its rules because they want to showcase their quarterbacks. I think that's fair, but I do think that there are teams that recently have found ways to win with average quarterback play.
I mean, Tomlin won 8 games with decidedly below average quarterback play. I don't know. I think they're very close. I've always said this in the Tomlin and Cowher debate. I've always said this. They are two sides of the same coin, frankly.
So they're just one side of the coin then.
Well, no, there are two heads on a coin. So if it's two people
it's heads and heads?
Well, no, it's just heads and tails. If no matter what side you flip, you get the same thing.
Heads and tails aren't the same thing. So in that case, there are two sides of the coin. You're making it sound like it's a one-sided coin.
Two sides of the same coin.
If they're both the same thing, it's like if you were a magician that had a coin that had heads on one side and heads on the other side. If you're saying that they're exactly the same thing.
You know what? That's true. It's Two Faces coin, basically. Because didn't it always come up heads no matter what? They're the same coach, though, to me. They always have been. They are both huge motivator guys with more of a defensive reputation. Mm-hmm. Big-time motivators. Big-time get the absolute best out of your guys.
Craig, do you think they're the same?
Hold on. I'm not done. Have left a lot to be desired at various points in terms of game day coaching. No one was saying we were going to censor
you for the rest of the show.
I felt like you were moving on. You were taking the Oscars shepherd's hook, and you were yanking me out of the way. So, Mr. Bring OBJ
Here,
to
I'll
Pittsburgh.
just slowly pot him down as he's talking. There we go. Okay, what were you asking?
The listeners want to know if you think that because Tomlin has more wins than Cowher, he's now a better coach.
No, I don't think so. Chris made the argument of the quarterbacks that they had. Cowher had to do it with, like, Cordell. It's just not the same. It's too hard to compare. I'd take Cowher, though.
Wait a minute. So you're saying it's too hard to wait? So then you can't compare coaches from?
No, because you said like black and white plain is the wins to this, the wins to that. No, like it's too hard to compare by just saying because of the wins is one guy better than the other. When you look at the overall body of work, the argument of who they played with, I like Cowher better.
I'll give you a Cowher stat that I think helps him win this argument. They both went to a Super Bowl and won. They both went to a Super Bowl and lost. Here in Cowher had some 6-10 seasons. Mike's never had a season worse than 8-8. But here's one that I think is a big feather in Cowher's cap. Cowher has 8 seasons in which he won at least one playoff game. Tomlin only has 4. I mean, that is a huge difference. That's double the seasons with going into January and at least getting one win. So Tomlin's done it 4 times, right? Mm-hmm. So there's 2008, obviously, 2010, 2015, 2016. That's it. I mean, when you really look at it that way, he's been a coach for 14 completed seasons, and there's 4 years where they won a playoff game. That's not a great ratio, Chris.
How much should it factor in for Bill Cowher that he lost multiple AFC title games as a home favorite?
He got there, though, man. He got there.
In fact, he lost 3 of them as a favorite. One by a point favorite, 97, 6-point favorite to the Chargers, and then a 10-point favorite in 01.
I mean, that would be like saying if we were comparing.
But isn't that a huge disappointment when you were favored by that much in 2 of those 3 games to come up empty?
I don't know. That would be like saying
hold on. If Mike Tomlin got a Steelers team to the point where they were in an AFC title game, say it was this year, and they were good enough that they were a 7-point favorite.
Right.
Who cares what the opponent is? And they're healthy.
Yep.
And they blow that game. You and I are on the air that next day killing him for it. So it happens not once, but twice, but 3 times in Bill Cowher's career. That's what he was known for, was gagging in big games.
But he got his team to the big game more than Tomlin has.
I think Tomlin's underachieved, but I think these guys have very similar strengths and very similar warts on their records.
Tomlin has one more win than the guy. That's why we're having this conversation in the first place, is that it's close. But that would be like if we were comparing, I don't know, Marv Levy to a coach that never made it to the Super Bowl, and we're like, well, how much do we discount? Like, you're a LeBron James over Michael Jordan guy. That would be like if Craig came on the air and was like,
here's Craig potting my mic down again.
LeBron, how many times did he go to the finals and lose, Chris? How many times did he get to the big game and lose?
Well, it would be him losing in the East Finals all the time. I mean, even getting to the penultimate game, to me, is a lot different than getting to the biggest game.
But it's not like Tomlin and Cowher went to the same number of AFC championship games, and Tomlin won his AFC title games, and
Tomlin
Cowher
has
lost
underachieved,
them.
and I think Cowher underachieved in a different but slightly more impressive way. Slightly. That's what I would give him.
Well, that is a backhanded compliment if I ever heard one. Hey, Bill Cowher, congratulations on making it to Canton all these years. I want to be the first to congratulate you on underachieving in a less emphatic way. Kudos. Let me know if you need me to present you at the Hall of Fame.
Do you know what I thought is a big like non-feather in Cowher's cap? That 97 team that lost to Elway's team was a close game. Cordell played a bad game in the AFC title game, but it looked like back then, and this is an unfair thing to bring up to you to some degree because you weren't here. I was 12 years old in the thick of like being obsessed with sports at that point. People did think that they were about to get on another crazy roll with Cordell, this new futuristic quarterback, dual threat.
Yeah.
And then for them to go completely in the toilet the next 2 years, to me, was always a very bad reflection on Cowher.
Yeah.
And then he gets them back up to,
no doubt, but
prominence. But
still. In the prime of Ben Roethlisberger's career, they had 2 8-8 seasons where they flat out missed the playoffs.
I know.
Like,
it's not good. And sandwiched around those were wild card losses when they were 12-4 and 11-5.
And I'll tell you what, I think the playoff losses for Cowher over time, history looks back on some of those losses more fondly. Now, not the Chargers game, of course.
I mean, do you really look? Hold on.
The Broncos and Patriots for sure. When you
I can't look back on that Broncos game more favorably.
It's Elway and Terrell Davis, Chris.
They beat the piss out of that team by 11 points in the regular season.
I know,
they smacked them around.
I know.
Do I have to dump that one, Craig? Am I not allowed to say that?
I'm comparing it in the context of those are Cowher's playoff losses to John freaking Elway, back-to-back champs, and the 2001 Patriots, the beginning of a dynasty, when compared to Blake. Wait, don't stop me on this.
Stop.
So when compared to Tim Tebow and Blake Bortles,
again,
you're right. You're right.
Wait, you're telling me that we get on Tomlin fairly now for a lack of detail-oriented attention to stuff in the game, right? Clock management, stuff like that. Those are bad losses, careless losses, you might say, right?
Yes.
Tell me how getting beat by Brady's team in 01 by a 55-yard punt return, by a 49-yard blocked field goal return is not the definition of carelessness and a lack of detail-oriented preparation. It is a humiliating loss that gets no better, not 1 ounce better in retrospect. It gets worse in retrospect. Every time I hear Josh Miller talk about being on the wrong hash mark,
you don't hear that from Josh anymore. He's gone radio silent. And no one, when lamenting Steelers playoffs over the years, looks back on 01. No, they don't. You
just said no one does, and I told you I do.
We got one person. We found the needle in a haystack.
So you are projecting out to the whole 2-point-something million people in this metro area that are probably Steelers fans.
It doesn't even come close.
You don't think they think about that game?
I don't think it even – no, if they do, it's because they think Spygate screwed them over and the Patriots cheated, and that's why they lost. Way more than like Cowher shooting himself in the foot. It's New England cheating that gets brought up, and I know you hate that, but that's true. I mean, that's the number one fan complaint over those AFC Championship game losses in 01 and 04.
Well, doesn't the Jaguars loss get softened by the fact that but for a very bad missed call, they would have been in the Super Bowl that year, beating those very same Patriots on the road? Nope. Miles Jack was never touched.
Nope, not at all. Follow us on Twitter at 93.7 The Fan.